Ibrahim Traore captures traitors and paraded them after failed coup. Late at night, while the world slept, someone tried to steal the heart of the country. Burkina Faso was quiet, but it wasn't safe. Deep in the city, behind locked doors and drawn curtains, shadows moved. Not the kind made by trees or lamps, but the kind that wore uniforms and had soft voices full of secrets. These men once walked beside President Ibrahim Traore. They smiled at him during meetings, clapped when he spoke to the people, and even shook his hand in front of cameras. But behind those smiles were lies. They had grown tired of waiting for power. They didn't want to serve. They wanted to rule. In small rooms with dim lights, they gathered like snakes in a nest. They leaned close, whispered low, and passed messages written in codes. Plans were made. Promises were exchanged. One said, "When the time comes, I'll bring the radio tower." Another replied, "And I'll take the main gate." They were planning a coup, a silent, sudden strike. They thought no one knew, but they were wrong. Ibrahim Traore was no fool. He had grown up in the same streets they now tried to control. He knew what fear smelled like. He understood betrayal long before he wore the title of president. And most of all, he listened, not with ears only, but with something deeper, his instincts. Some say he barely slept, that he would walk the halls of his office like a ghost, thinking, listening, watching. One morning, just before sunrise, a note arrived at his desk, slipped in by someone he didn't see, written in careful handwriting. A small sentence, easy to miss. "They will strike on the night of silence." He held the note for a long time. No name, no proof. But that one line felt cold in his hand. And in that cold, he heard the truth. Ibrahim didn't shout. He didn't call for arrests. He didn't even let the traitors know he was onto them. Instead, he became quiet, still, watching like a lion hiding in tall grass. He began to notice things others missed. A nervous laugh from a general, a paper folded too many times, a phone that rang and stopped too quickly. And then, finally, it happened. One of them slipped. A single word in a message, meant for someone else, sent to the wrong person. That word was storm. It wasn't weather talk. It was the signal. That was the moment the clock began ticking. Ibrahim knew the traitors would soon make their move. He also knew he had only one chance to stop them. If he rushed, he might scare them into hiding. If he waited too long, they would strike, and innocent people would pay the price. So he played along. He sat in meetings with them, ate meals with them, laughed at their jokes. But inside, his heart beat like a drum of war. Every word they spoke, every step they took, he watched. He built a quiet circle around him. Men and women loyal to truth, not titles. They spoke in codes too. They passed maps and names, just like the traitors did. But Ibrahim's plan wasn't built on lies. It was built on patience. And while they were up all night, plotting and planning, Ibrahim waited. He waited for the night of silence. The night the stars would vanish behind clouds. The night when even the birds wouldn't sing. Because that was the night he would show them. You can whisper behind walls, but walls have ears. And some ears belong to lions. Ibrahim didn't rush. He didn't send sirens screaming or flash warning lights. He moved like a shadow among shadows, silent, careful, watching. To the world, everything looked calm. The streets were filled with chatter. Shops opened. Radios played songs. Kids kicked soccer balls in the dirt. The sun rose and set like always. But underneath that quiet, danger crept. The traitors walked freely through the capital. They smiled at soldiers, shook hands with ministers, and spoke like leaders. But behind their backs, they passed messages under napkins. They spoke to strange men in parked cars. They looked over their shoulders a little too often. Ibrahim saw it all. He let them feel safe. Let them believe they were invisible. He watched where they met, who they called, what streets they avoided. He marked every face and every plan, but he never blinked. He waited. He knew their trap would only work if he pretended not to see it. And then it came. The night was unusually still. No wind, no stars, no dogs barking. Just a strange quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then the lights went out. Street lamps blinked once, then died. House bulbs went dark. Phones lost signal. The city fell into blackness like someone had dropped a curtain over it. Not a single spark remained. It was planned. A blackout. The perfect cover. The traitors moved fast. They were dressed in black, blending into the shadows. Some went to take control of the military radio station. Others crept toward government buildings. They whispered into radios, gave hand signals, slipped through back gates. They thought they were the only ones awake. They believed this was their moment. They were wrong. From the edge of the city, rumbling began. Not thunder, but trucks. Not lightning, but boots. The loyal soldiers came not with noise, but with purpose. Trained and ready, they had waited too. Waited under Ibrahim's command. In secret places, in silence, with orders clear, protect the heart of the people. As the traitors reached for doors and locks, they were met by lights, bright and blinding. Spotlights lit up the darkness like sudden fire. Engines roared. Guns clicked. Soldiers formed circles around every group of plotters. And then came the voice. Not shouting. Not afraid. Just steady, calm, and strong. You think you can steal what the people gave me? The men turned. There, stepping out from behind an armored truck, was Ibrahim Traore. No helmet, no fear, just eyes full of fire and truth. The traitors froze. Some dropped their weapons. Some tried to run, but there was nowhere left to go. Ibrahim walked straight toward them. His coat blew in the wind that suddenly returned, as if even the sky was proud of him. One man, one of the lead traitors, dropped to his knees. "How did you know?" he whispered. Ibrahim didn't answer. He didn't need to. The soldiers moved in, tying hands, loading trucks, clearing buildings. The night that was supposed to bring destruction had brought justice instead. In the distance, someone lit a candle, then another. One by one, windows glowed across the city. The people didn't know all the details, but they felt it. Something had tried to break them, but had failed. And as the trucks drove away with the captured traitors inside, a soft cheer rose, small at first, then louder. People stepped out of their homes, holding candles, holding each other. The light spread, just like hope. That night, Ibrahim didn't celebrate. He didn't give a speech. He stood at the edge of a balcony, looking out at the city he had protected, not with bullets, but with patience. Not with rage, but with truth. The traitors had used the dark to hide, but Ibrahim used it to reveal. The sun rose slowly over Burkina Faso that morning, like it wasn't sure what it would find. The city was quiet, not with fear, but with curiosity. People opened windows, stepped out of doors. The night had ended without chaos, but something was different. You could feel it in the air. Then, the drums began. Soft at first, a steady beat. Boom, boom, boom. And with them came footsteps, heavy, even, unbroken. The traitors were being paraded through the streets. Not hidden, not dragged, just exposed. Soldiers marched beside them, silent and still. The men in the middle, the ones who had plotted in shadows, now walked with heads lowered. Their uniforms didn't shine anymore. Their boots didn't sound proud. There were no masks left to wear. People lined the streets, hundreds, then thousands. Some came with confusion, others with anger. Children stood on tiptoes to see. Elderly men held their hands behind their backs, whispering prayers under their breath. The traitors passed through all of it. One woman shouted, "He ate from our bowl." Her voice cracked, full of pain. Another cried, "He promised us safety." A mother clutched her daughter close and whispered, Look, these are the men who tried to sell your tomorrow. No one threw stones. No one spat. But the silence between shouts was loud. Every step the traders took felt like thunder in their chests. And then came Ibrahim. He didn't walk in front. He didn't walk behind. He walked beside. Calm. Straight. Eyes forward. He said nothing. He didn't need to. His presence said everything. Look at what darkness looks like in daylight. The parade reached the city square. It was the same place where flags were raised and speeches were given. Today, there were no flags. No stage. Just people. Ibrahim raised one hand, and the soldiers stopped. The traders stood in a line. Not tied. Not beaten. Just there. So the truth could be seen. A boy, no older than 9, stepped through the crowd. He didn't run. He walked slowly, carefully, like he wasn't sure if this was allowed. He stopped in front of one of the men. He stared. Then, in a small voice that somehow carried across the square, he said, "He was my uncle." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The man looked down. Ashamed. Ibrahim stepped forward, knelt beside the boy. He looked him in the eyes. "And now you know," Ibrahim said softly, "what a real man shouldn't be." The boy nodded once. His lip trembled, but he stood tall. Then he turned and walked back into the crowd. And just like that, the pain didn't break the people, it bound them. This wasn't just about power, or politics, or uniforms. This was about trust, about what happens when people who are supposed to protect you try to steal from you instead. But it was also about something stronger, truth. Ibrahim stood once more. His eyes swept across the faces, not just the traders, the people's, his people. He didn't give a speech. He just looked at them, and they looked back. And that moment, quiet, raw, real, was worth more than 1,000 words. The parade ended. The traders were taken to face justice. Not revenge, not hate, just the law. But the people didn't go home right away. They stayed in the square, talking to each other, holding each other, lighting candles. And somewhere in that crowd, a child whispered, "The truth walked today." And another replied. And we all saw it. The courtroom was full. The traders stood inside a thick wall of silence. Not chained, not bruised, just there, waiting. Everyone expected punishment, something sharp, something heavy, something final. These men had tried to steal the country, to break it from the inside. People whispered about what might come. Life in prison. Exile. Worse. But when Ibrahim entered, the room hushed. He wore no medals. No grand uniform. Just a simple suit, his face calm, his eyes steady. He stood before the nation, the press, the families, and the traders, and said something no one expected. "We will not let hate win. Not today." The words dropped like stones into a quiet pond. They rippled through the room, through the city, through the country. The judges would decide the fate of the traders, not Ibrahim, not anger, not revenge. He stepped back, said nothing else, and left. People didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just stood, stunned. Even the traders looked shaken. One of them, an old general, lowered his head and whispered, "He gave me what I never gave him, mercy." That was the turning point, not when Ibrahim caught them, not even when he exposed them, but when he forgave them. That's when he truly won. Because power can scare people, but mercy changes them. Later that evening, the city was quiet again, but not with fear this time. With peace. Lights glowed in windows. People talked on balconies. Children played outside without looking over their shoulders. The country, still wounded, was healing. And in the middle of it all, Ibrahim walked alone. No guards, no cameras, just him. The same streets where drums had once pounded now echoed with the sounds of nightbirds and laughter. As he passed by a group of children playing with bottle caps in the dirt, one boy stood up and ran to him. The boy didn't speak. He just reached into his pocket and handed Ibrahim a small piece of candy, wrapped in red paper, sticky from his hand, soft from the heat. Ibrahim took it gently. He smiled, nodded once, and tucked it into his coat. The boy smiled back, then ran off. No words, just hope. It was a small thing, but something in that moment felt bigger than any speech or headline. It meant trust was growing again. That the people saw not just a man in charge, but a man who cared, a man who led with heart, not just rules. And as he kept walking, a breeze followed him. Soft, warm, like the country itself was exhaling. That night, the stars came out brighter. The city slept deeper. No alarms, no gunshots, just quiet. Because the people had seen something rare, a leader who chose light when he had every reason to turn dark. And that was the day the sun refused to go down. In a world full of power struggles, one man chose mercy over revenge and lit a fire of hope across a nation. If this story moved you, don't just watch. Share it. Let the world see that true strength lives in forgiveness. Subscribe for more real stories that touch the heart, shake the soul, and remind us of what really matters. Until next time, stay awake, stay human, and never let the light die.